Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Eric Torshun. I'm the co-chair of this HR working group together with my delighted partner, Fabien Taub. We are glad to welcome you tonight for this very exceptional seminar talk with a fantastic speaker, Ashley Recanati. So Ashley has authored this book that I'm reading. You can get it later if you want to. It's in English for the time being, but the French translation is going to be released early next year. It's a work of 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and it's very, very interesting. I've only read half of it, but I can tell you it's. I already bought it for my son, who's turning 26, because as people, we are concerned about AI. As parents or spouse, we're also concerned about AI and its impact on work. So definitely a nice present for not Christmas, but Chinese New Year. Christmas, because you can get some tonight anyway in English, and Chinese New Year for the French version. So Ashley has been in China for almost 20 years, 19 years as far as I remember. He used to work for LVMH in the finance position, and now he's heading a French company for the APAC perimeter, a French industrial company called Sawerman. So without any further ado, let's give him the floor. And of course, feel free to ask many questions because the topic is very, very important for all of us and for the future generation as well. Thank you very much.
Actually, I should just let you keep talking, Eric. You're selling it so well.
Yes, I want my cut.
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, I have around 40 slides I'd like to share with you. Not just slides, but I'll talk with you at the same time. But that's just to give you an idea of the time. And you can interrupt if you want, or you can keep the questions to the end, whichever you feel like. So yeah, three big topics I want to talk about tonight. One is what AI does to labor. Let's go ahead and see the stuff there too. The second, actually, I switched them around. I want to talk first about how the company can assist and support workers, and then what the workers should do. I guess there's a mix of people here. Some of you are employees and you're kind of wondering about this. Others are probably like GM or HR manager. What are you want to know how you help your team to develop? So we look at these different aspects tonight. Does this work? Seems no. I got my own in case. Okay, great. So AI fears is a big, this is a big topic. Just a little background about my book. So it's not up there. These are other books. But, and so this was all before ChatGPT came out, and there's many more books. And I read these and a lot of other stuff. And I noticed that none of the books really address what employees can do as a worker to face the threats of technology. So I thought that was a bit startling because all of these books, they all said that, yeah, there's a big problem coming up for the workers, but they don't really look towards the solutions, or they say the solution is for the government or what. So I found that a bit bothering, surprising, shocking, and I was a bit angry about that. That's why I started researching the topic more, and then it ended up a few years later with a book. So firstly, what AI does to labor. If we just look at, first of all, I'm very pragmatic. So I look at the entire market, the job market, what people do in the work. So if you look in the US, it's quite representative of Western economies. We have around a fourth of the people working in blue collar jobs, a big third of people in office jobs, and another third in service jobs. And so that's just really how jobs are cut out. So I can't address every single job. And last presentation, someone asked me, oh, so what about tax advisors? What are we supposed to do? I'm like, okay, there's 800 different or 1,000 different jobs. So you got to look at them, but there are some things we can see. So if we take those jobs and we just classify them by the low paid jobs all the way up to the highest paying jobs. So here you go from McDonald's to the CEO of McDonald's, basically. You can see the number of workers in each of these different categories. This is at the beginning of the century. So you can see we have the middle class jobs over here. Does this work? Oh, yeah, right. We have the middle class jobs over here, which take the bulk of the workforce, with the office admin support jobs, which is the biggest employer in the United States. And what happened over the course of the past 20 years is there's been a big decrease in the jobs in the middle there. You can see the jobs in the middle here have decreased. whereas the ones in the bottom and the top paying wages have gone up. They've increased over the period. And this, if it's even more pronounced if you just focus on the change of jobs, taking into account the fact that the workforce increased over the past 20 years, then you can see like, okay, the number of the change in the number of workers, it's quite drastic. The middle class here basically is falling down. And this is a phenomenon that's been going on for some time now. It goes by different names: the squeezing of the middle class, hollowing out of the middle class, job polarization, etc. What it means is we're ending up with a society where there's people down here and there's people up here, and there's less in the middle. So it's kind of becoming a society of haves and have-nots. So when you hear a lot of people talking about the future, like, oh, there's going to be no more jobs left and everything, that's not really the case for now. We're not facing massive unemployment, but we are facing a deterioration in the quality of the jobs. And it's going to become more and more difficult for people to go from one to the other, because in the middle, there's less things to do. So that poses a lot of societal problems. My point tonight is not to really dig too deep into that. I just want you to know about this. And because the kind of people I'm addressing right now is the people that are in this category. Because if you looked in the chart just before, there's still a lot of people in the office admin jobs and in production and in other areas here. So they're faced with a choice. They can either go up or they're going to end up going down, because there's going to be less jobs here. Because this, again, I pulled the figures in 21. This is before ChatGPT and all these Gen AI tools come out. Now with these new tools, the jobs over here are going to become even more under threat. And these jobs, a lot of them, when you really dig into what they involve, it has a lot to do with recurrent work, repetitive actions. And we're going to talk a lot about that. So anyways, that's just really to put the frame. So what is causing the disruption? We have the fourth industrial revolution technologies, which are coming out, which I suppose everyone's heard by now. There's a lot of technologies in there. So I proposed a framework so that we can view these technologies in terms of the number of the broadness, in terms of the number of markets that they impact, and then in terms of the depth of the impact. And this helps us to be able to categorize the technologies so that we can kind of see, okay, we hear about drones, we hear about NFTs, about metaverse and everything. So you can see, like, are these things really a big market or a big threat? Or are they just, something like a fad? Or are they just something that's going to hit like a few small sectors? So you can see in the top here, the most lethal or the broadest and biggest impact technologies, you'll find them up here. They're what we call GPTs. That has nothing to do with ChatGPT. That means a general purpose technology, which is a technology which hits a lot of things. So back in the day, you could have said electricity or steam or maybe cars even. You could put them somewhere around here. Those would be more general purpose technology. Something like the fax machine, that would be very broad because every business has a fax machine, but that would be down here because the impact is not, you're not going to go bankrupt for not having a fax machine, right? So, but these technologies, though, you do want to look at them. So these are the ones that are causing the disruption. Then based on the sector you're on, these could too. So now I want to look about what it is. That's the subject of the disruption. I want to look at the object of disruption really quick to clarify some terms, because there's a lot of confusion when people talk about saying, oh, there's going to be more jobs created, blah, 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 and everything. So we need to make some clarification on that. So when someone has a job, there's actually 4 dimensions to that. They have a job like they're an accountant or they're a salesperson or what. Their job consists in several tasks. They work for a given company, and that company belongs to an industry, right? So any of these 4 areas can be impacted by disruption. You can have sectoral disruption, the famous case of the horses getting replaced by cars, and a lot of jobs got affected, like the guy making the horse carriage, the guy making the horseshoes, the stables, the horse scoopers, the horse veterinarians, etc. That's sectoral disruption. You have corporate disruption, which is when a company goes under because some other companies come out with something really new, not necessarily a product. It can be an innovative process or something, or just being really good at doing something. They disrupt the whole sector. So the sector can grow as a whole. It's not dead, but there's a lot of change happening in there. And those are a few examples. And then, so there's a lot of books that talk about these cases. Oops, what happened? I pressed on, okay. There's a lot of books that talk about these cases, like how the CEOs can, prepare for this and avoid this happening. So it's pretty much a hot topic. There's a lot less that talk about job disruption. And job disruption will be the case of a company doing very well in a sector which is booming, and yet the CEO steps out and he just announces to everyone, or if it's Elon Musk, he'll send them an email saying, oh, we're going to fire 2/3 of the accountants in the company tomorrow. because we can, the technology enables us to, so they're no longer necessary. That is job disruption. And then within a job, you can have certain tasks which are disrupted or which can be automated. That's also a possibility. So there's a lot less books that talk about this because it doesn't threaten the company. The company still does well. The share price will go up, and the CEO will get a fat bonus for having got laid off people and being leaner. So for the employee, no matter which disruption you face, though, you're facing the same issue. You're basically losing your job. So my point was focusing on these people, on these types of disruption. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get into job disruption. First of all, coming back to the industrial revolutions, like I was heading at before, if you're in one of these technologies, they're usually just going to hit a certain sector, cause sectoral disruption. If you're in one of these technologies, though, these can disrupt everything. The job, the sector, the company, it disrupts everything. Look at the internet, electricity, it has a huge potential to disrupt things if you don't get on the bandwagon, right? So with that being said, I want to look at job disruption, and we're going to go a bit into the details here. And it's really important to look at this because a lot of people talk about, what ChatGPT does. There's this research saying, it helps people into productivity, blah, blah, blah. But you got to really look at what's happening. And this is a framework to help to do that. So first of all, I'll just take some examples. There's two phases in the job disruption. There's the complementary phase where the tool, whether it's ChatGPT or anything else, helps people. So when you look at the horses, this was I know that's not a horse, but stick with me, right? When you look at the animal, here it was helped by a plow that helped increase its productivity. That's the first phase. Then a couple of thousands years after, we had the substitution phase where we didn't need horses anymore because we had cars and tractors. If we look at jobs, on the manufacturing jobs, people were first enhanced by tools and new methods of production that went with them. In this case, this is the assembly line at the Ford manufacturing in 1935. And today we have factories. I was in one recently that looked very much like this near Beijing. These are KUKA machines. So we have like highly automated machines. And everyone thinks about this in terms of robotization, but obviously it hits offices too. In the offices, we have a very famous example that people like to talk a lot about. It's the bank tellers. So there was a big scare 50 years ago when we had the ATMs coming out. People were saying, that's the end of all the bank jobs and everything, because, that's what you would used to go to the bank to. You would go there for cash, you'd get cash, and, you'd deposit your cash and everything. Then ATMs came out and people were like, okay, we don't need bankers anymore. But what really happened, and people love this story, what really happened is despite all the ATMs that were deployed in the US, the number of bank tellers still kept going up, or at least, a bit less, but I mean, it didn't go down. So the story then, and you can still read a lot about this story. Everyone loves citing this. The story is that, it's not because you have technology that, it's going to automate jobs. People will find other things to do, because that's what they did here. They found that, okay, they don't have to deal with cash. They can instead, sell them a mortgage or some loan or something, just any way that they can squeeze money from you with some clever methods. The bankers found the ways to do it. And so they kept their jobs and they say, wow, this is great. Let's open more banks. And so they opened more banks all over the US and they hired more bank tellers. And the funny thing about these studies is they always end around 2010. And I was thinking, well, that's great, but I mean, the time goes by, right? So I want to see what happens, right? So I get the data, and what happens after that? Well, the number of bank tellers has just gone, is around half of what they used to be like at their peak around 2007. So then you wonder, okay, what happened? Well, we gone to the second phase now. We're in the second phase where we have internet banking, we have fintech that is able to replace all this. Of course, we have the finance crisis, but I mean, that's not it. There's technology here that's explaining why the number of bank tellers is going down. So that is an interesting example also. And with this, I go to the framework of job disruption, which has these two stages. And actually, there's three types. So we have the complementary phase where the tool helps to complement the worker. So we have the technology. It causes two different types of disruption here when you're in the complementary phase. The first is what I call skills commoditization. So this will be something, we'll get into the detail in a bit. But the second type is going to be skills enhancements. This is where it really helps you to do the job better. And then either of these types can lead to less workers because you achieve greater efficiency. So you can do the same thing with less labor. But at the same time, by doing it like this, you're able to make the service or the product for a cheaper cost. And then you can sell it cheaper to people. So then that means that more, you open the market to more wallets. More people can buy the product or service. And that leads to an increase in demand, and that means more workers. So however these two, like a tug of war, that'll determine whether there's more workers or less workers in the end. This is again in the complementary phase. In the last phase, as we saw, the technology keeps on improving and improving, and soon enough, it can substitute entirely for labor. Now, let me get into these two examples to explain them a little bit more. Oh, there's some examples of full automation. Right. Let me just get into that. So commoditization, what happens here? Let's take taxi drivers, because that's an example I think everyone is familiar with. There's other examples, but okay. So we start with the number of taxi drivers, and then we can see newcomers arriving in the sense of GPS, DD, Uber, and everything. What's the difference is these guys, they don't know anything about the streets. They don't know how to get from here to they don't know how to get from here to the, what's it called? The Mexican place down the street. They wouldn't be able to do that. They need to use the thing, Cantina Agave, right? Great martinis over there, margaritas. So what happens over time is these guys just take over. Thanks to the technology, they don't need to know the street anymore. The technology does it for them. And then soon taxi drivers don't know the streets anymore either because they don't need to. So you get this commoditization where everybody can do the job, and then the average salary goes down because the expertise no longer commands any value. And this is what's happening now with things like ChatGPT, for instance, or Midjourney. Some people are able to produce stuff without having to know how to use sophisticated tools. And there's some other examples. So the historic example is the Ludids. That was like 200 years ago. It's a famous example you can look into. I talk about it in my book. And there's many other examples, and some that we haven't seen yet, like plumbers, electricians using augmented reality or assisted reality. Talk about it in the book. The second case, right? So the second case is that of skills enhancements. So here we have, in a job, we have people who are not really that great using the technologies or the tools, and others that are really good at using the tools. And over time, those that use the tools are more and more efficient, and then you need less workers overall, thanks to this. And the salary usually goes up. So this is the case where, this is what you hear a lot about in the books, where people are like, oh, if you are able to leverage the technology, you can augment yourself and you can do better. And I should have some examples coming up. Oh, first I have to explain, it's a bit complicated, sorry. This is the most complicated slide. First, I have to explain that there's two kinds of enhancements. There's direct enhancement, where the tool really enables you to get better by using the tools. And Lydia here, you know what I'm talking about. I'm good at Excel, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm good at Excel, and like I can go really deep down into that because I was a finance controller before. And what someone else maybe takes them 4 hours to do, I'll do it in 5 minutes, if they're really doing it basically, right? So this is the kind of example in the first case. The second case is indirect automation. It's the tool helps you to automate some redundant task or make it a lot more simple. So this will be the case of the ATM guys that we saw just before, the bankers. Their time is freed for more meaningful work. So here's some example of direct enhancement. You have the stock traders replaced by quants. That's me here, etc. Those are and then you have the indirect enhancement examples like the bank tellers. What's the big difference between the two? How do you know which situation you're facing? The tools up here, they take a lot of time to master. You have to work a lot of time with these tools and actually experiment with them for a long time to be able to understand how they work and use them really well proficiently. The tools down here, these things like ChatGPT, you can watch a YouTube video and in 2 minutes, you know how to use it. I'm sorry, I know that there's another workshop session going on a bit later or specific on how to use ChatGPT, but seriously, the basics in 2 minutes with the YouTube video, you know how to use it, right? So these are very simple. Anyone can use these. It's extremely democratic tools. So that's the difference between the two. So for a quick, I have an example here with ChatGPT, but I might have to skip it due to the time. But anyway, okay, let's just go fast. So ChatGPT, a same tool can do different types of disruption at the same time. ChatGPT enhances writers, journalists, and everything in their job. It also helps people like me in our tasks because we can use it from time to time in our work, right? And then it helps the common people who are not experts to do things like produce work on writing and things like that. But by doing that, they can bypass these people. So they no longer need these people anymore. So these people are the ones that are being at threat today. Here, we're not at threat, people like me, because writing emails, that's not what I do all day long. I do that maybe like 20% of my time. So these people here are facing the real substitution threat. So that's the big difference between the job and the tasks. That's why I separate the two. So how much automation or simplification is too much. You have to look at how much it represents in your job. If, like me, you spend like 20% of your time writing emails, something like ChatGPT is going to just augment us. It's going to help us free some time where we can do more meaningful work, just like they say in the Harvard Business Review and everything. If it's going to automate like 80 to 100% of your time, though, there you're more at risk. You could get the pink slip there. Anything in between, it's really going to depend. There could be a reorganization in the company. It depends how many people are doing the same thing in your department. There's a lot of different factors to consider. It's a bit, it gets more complicated, right? Then you have to look also, when you look at how much time it represents, the idea is uptime, you can do more stuff. So you have to look at, okay, maybe the bank tellers before, it took 50% of their time doing the cash and everything. But when they looked at the more stuff that they could do, then it's only like 20% because this went far on the right side. So that's kind of hard to actually measure, but it's the idea that you can't neglect it either. So yeah, to sum up on this first part, yeah, you got to see what kind of tech you're facing, the broadest impact. Identify, is it user-friendly, democratizing type of tech, typically with a user interface? Or is it something that is, requiring in-depth expertise? And then then like I said up here, see how much of your job is it if you're talking about indirect enhancement, how much of it is that threat here? Do I put everything together for those who want to take a nice photo? Because I see some people take a photo, so. Okay. sorry, I lose my voice a bit. I was in India and then I went to Beijing. It's not the best place to go. So next part, company support. So yeah, I moved this in front, as you can see. How can the company help their staff, their department, their employees to skill up? All right. Well, we know what AI does. It does all these kind of things, right? And then there's different ways that the firm can use this to implement it in their, for the company. There's a lot of things you can do. The AI can help with your internal controls, process applications. If you in your HR, it can help you a lot on marketing and customer side, obviously, because we're talking about big data. And it can help improve on the work efficiency, and that's what we're more concerned about today. But it can do a lot of stuff, as you all know. And you really need to, look into each of these things, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's going very fast now. So a corporate digitization strategy, you got to account for all the stakeholders, obviously, in the company. And there's more than what I showed here. You can have sponsors and other stuff that aren't even shown here. Now, which ones do companies usually focus on? There's this report that IBM does every year, where you can see like they ask like over 3,000 CEOs in the world, okay, what is your focus over the next 3 years? And year after year, customer is usually on top. But the funny thing is in 2023, suddenly there was a huge change and you see productivity or profitability, which is going to be hitting more at the employees, coming up on top, and tech in second, which really shows like the extent to which ChatGPT is just changing everything now. It's really changing the game big time. So yeah, it's proving a big challenge for employees. And there's and it's challenging for everyone because you see everything coming out. There's things coming out every day. I picked this up this morning. It's just all the times happening and everyone is lost. I'll be honest with you. If you ask me what Clockwise is or what, don't ask me because half of the things in here, I haven't tried them yet. I don't know them, There's just so much going on now. It's hard to be aware of what's going on. There's a lot more interesting things than that IBM report. They do it every year. You can pick it up online. What I note is that 2 out of 3 CEOs are acting without a clear view of how to help their workforce skill up the whole AI thing. Oh, Jen, I thought everyone is aware. It's going to be things like ChatGPT, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. It's the AI that generates content based on large language model data sets and everything. So yeah, Bard, all of these things. We say LLMs, generative AI. It's the same thing, just expressed differently. So how do you want to help your workforce to gear up? Now we really get into the nitty gritty. This is what we all want our workforce to be like, but come on, we got to get real. It's more like this. So first of all, you got to get really serious. Okay, who do you have in your company, right? Who's in your team? You're gonna have some A players, you're gonna have some B players, and you're gonna have some C players. And it's kind of okay. We know it's like this. You're not just going to get rid of the C players. This is the way companies are built. You can't just have everyone wanting to be the next CEO. We're comfortable with that. We know that some people, they just want to have a work-life balance. They want to do their little job and go home after. And that's fine. because we don't have this SEO position for everyone, or it used to be fine. So there's this famous guy back in the day. It's very interesting. He did this work about why does a company even exist? It's called The Nature of the Firm. And I'm doing a little parenthesis here. His idea, I mean, what he came up with was to say that it would be too complicated. Every time the company had a task to do, if they go outside to find someone and to bargain with them on, okay, do you have the right skills? I don't trust you. What's the cost? Blah, blah, blah. So it's just more simple to hire people. And that's why people have employees. But I have three things to say about that. First, when you do this, so this is back a century ago. First, when you do this, that means your employee, when you get him in, well, you can't tell him what to do every day. So you're usually going to give him a job description with a script or standard operating procedure, what they have to do. And a script looks a lot like, Python or VBA or any form of code. So that's kind of risky there. They've become like very just, they punch in by the clock as opposed to freelance giggers or who are paid by the click. And the second thing is that now with the gig economy, with the shared economy, you can easily outsource, much easier than back then, because you can see, okay, the guy's reputation, how many stars they have. You use an application like Fiverr or freelance.com or what. It's a lot easier to get people from outside. And that's why the traditional job now is coming under threat by this other form of work, which is freelance people, giggers, temps. So, and the temps are very efficient. The giggers, they're the first ones to use any kind of technology. Something like ChatGPT, the freelance people, they're the first ones to learn how to use it, because by using it, they become more efficient and they can get paid more. An office employee, they're paid the same thing. So they're less, going to be looking towards that. So, yeah. And then the third thing is that the third difference is when you look at the chart, what happened over the past 50 years is a lot of the parts of the company have been outsourced. It started with Nike outsourcing manufacturing, and then now everyone just does it. You outsource a lot of things. You outsource your legal, your strategy to some McKinsey consultants. You outsource your HR to guys like this. You outsource your logistics, your R&D, IT, accounting. Everything is outsourced. And you do this because it makes sense, because you can't focus on everything. You need really the best of the best, people like Eric, to handle your HR, right? But the thing is, you do this for a certain cost. And now a lot of companies, they're going to look twice at this and think about, wait a minute. So now we're outsourcing our social media or advertising to TBWA or to, McCann or what. And they're going to think like, actually now with Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or what, we can get these ideas ourselves and just have one intern doing this in-house. So some of the things are going to be brought back in-house. So there's going to be this kind of change happening. This is just something, again, it's a parenthesis, but it's something that really people need to look out for, because if you're in any of one of those businesses which thrives on being a service provider to other companies, then you're going to have to really look at who your customers are, Eric, and see like, okay, you got the high-end customers, they will still be paying the bill because they're high-end, they want the better service. The other ones, they know that they're not going to get a good result if they use Gen AI or other technologies, but when they take into account the price difference, they're going to be, well, yeah, it's good enough. We'll deal with that. A lot of people, they don't really care about the premium. And so there's going to be a lot of change there happening. So this is something you got to be really careful about. It's going to set the goalposts for the whole idea of transactional costs. So that was just a parenthesis. Yeah. Anyways, getting back to topic. Yeah, we have our A's, our B's, and our C's. So how do you help these people? Well, there's different ways. You're going to want to seek which kind of characteristics you want to see in these people. So they don't necessarily have to have computer skills. I put that in last, but they do need to be open, to be willing to learn and to change and everything. And that's very difficult for some of the employees. And these are the red flags that you don't want for the employees. You don't want the guy who's just like, staying there and, like I said before, just not willing to change or anything. They have to understand that they have to be part of the change. And yes, you have to put an effort in. The company's not going to give everything to you on a silver plate. You got to be there, willing to help, but so it has to come from the top, but from the bottom, you need something too. And then if they say, yes, that's the IT job, well, yes, but, in reality, every single department is tainted with a bit of the other departments. It's not because back when I was financial controller, it doesn't mean that I don't have some sort of HR skills that I need to have to work with people. I need IT skills too. I need a bit of R&D skills, marketing, everything. Every department, you need a little bit of skills from everything else. You can't be just in a silo. So that is something, you got to understand. And that's particularly true for IT, because in any job, There's going to be IT tools who help you to be more performance. So in the company, you need to try and find who you can see within your staff who can help you to make the change. This is change management on getting onto this. So it's a whole art or a whole science, you could say. And you really need to get these people on your side to find these people that can help and that have a good EQ to work with other people to help to spearhead the change within the company. Then you need to, yeah, like I said, you need to have this coming from the top. So a very top-down approach. And, it's the usual change management kind of strategies you need to have. You also need to talk with your staff. And I recommend an approach which will be different for the A's, the B's, and the C's. The A's, they're usually kind of going to be on board. They're going to be willing to do this. The B's, you really need to get really practical with them. You need to sit them down. You take the JD, their job description. You go point by point. You're like, okay, you see each of these tasks. How much does each of these take of your time? This 20%, 30%, this one 50%. Each of these can be automated to a certain extent or done faster. This can be done 30% faster. This one 50%. That you do that, you end up with a total. You say, okay, now we got like 100% of your time down to 60% of your time. There's 3 other people in your department doing the same thing. What are we going to do now? Who are we going to let go of? Or what do we do? Is there more things you can do? This is for the time the person, by then they're usually sweating and they're supposed to come up with ideas about what else they can do. Because there's always other things to do. If they're creative enough, you can think about it together with them. But you got to be there to help them. And you got to explain to them really clearly that, this will be the same wherever they go. You're doing them a favor here, So you can show them the door, as the old wise man used to say, but it's for them to go through it. Right? You know what I'm talking about. Very old wise man. They got to do an effort. They got to go through also, right? So that leads us to the final part. I don't have a watch, actually, so I don't know how much time I have left. I have plenty of time? Okay. Are there any questions so far? No? Okay. Let's continue then. So what your staff needs to be doing right now, right? Because, we're working against the clock here. Basically, if you don't upgrade, the competitor upgrades and then you're dead, it's a cutthroat market, right? So this is a book. It's not my book, actually. It's a book from this guy, but it's a book that kind of explains the whole thing. And you don't have to buy it because I'll explain it to you. It's very simple. Mine is more complicated, but a lot of books, they just stick to one idea. The idea is that of exponential acceleration, which is the course of technology. So like epitomized by Moore's law. And so that's great. Technology evolves really fast. However, companies, they evolve kind of linearly. So they're more slow to adapt. And then these guys are even more slow to adapt, usually. So this, he doesn't mention it, but for me, from my point of view, taking the perspective of the employee, this is a huge window of opportunity. Why? Because if you're able to put yourself over here, you're going to be able to, get a step ahead and do the job before your boss comes in and snoops in and see what you're doing, or comes in and say, hey, sit down. We're going to go through your JD together, So you want to be able to do this preemptively. So what do you want to do? When I was writing the book, I started finding a lot of things that employees were supposed to do, and then this and then that and everything. And what I realized as I was writing the book is that actually the best way for employees to prevent disruption is to take a cue from what companies facing disruption do. And there's a lot that we can find out about. There's not a lot of books talking about employees, but there's a lot of books talking about companies. So what do companies do to avoid being disrupted? The smart companies, they do a lot of stuff. They do a few of the things I write here. Yeah, they disrupt themselves. First of all, they focus on the customer. They invest in the future. They do story building. They do CRM. They do many things. And all of these things, getting towards the end of the list, all of these things are things that the employee can do. And I explain it in detail, obviously, in the book. But these are all actions that the employees can do themselves. Like automate wherever possible. We're going to get back to that one. So the beginning, one of the actions normally is to strategize. And when you do a strategy, that means you go from point A to point B. First of all, you need to know where is your situation right now. There's 1,000 jobs that are all different, and I can't give an answer for each job. It's for each person to look at what it is that they do. So it's a job introspection. And for me, it takes the form of a SWOT. We all know what a SWOT is: the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of your job. So you look inside, you look at what your job is, and you translate it, to see like, okay, what are the different elements in your job? So just like in a SWOT, when you do a SWOT in a company, you have like the technical, political, economics, every social, cultural, everything. You have all these different dimensions to look at. Here I look at different dimensions also, these different frames. So I just listed a few here. There's more, obviously, that can be taken in account. Some are inner, specific to the job. Some are external, demographics we haven't touched about yet, but that's a big one, because obviously we're also in a society which is aging. And in certain cases, there's actually, less workers. So that, the legal context is very important, social, cultural, etc. I'm going to talk a bit more about the internal stuff for now, though, because that's the more fun stuff. I mean, the interesting stuff to look into. So the inner aspects that I noted here, there's a few. So I'm going to show these in terms of, so dexterity and pattern recognition is one. We know that if you're a job where there's dexterity, like you're, changing baby diapers or something, this isn't something you can expect a robot to do, right? If you're an air hostess on an airplane, it's kind of hard to automate that. It's like a very small areas. You got to be really fast and everything. So you're not going to see a robot on the airplane doing the air hostess. So these are the things that you call the Moravec paradox, is the idea that a robot cannot do what a child does, but it can do like the high reasoning stuff of a human, like playing chess or things like that. And wherever there's VUCA, this is someplace where you're more safe from automation. So these are aspects that actually help the worker. It's a headwind to automation, a headwind to technology. On the other side, though, we have tailwinds to technology, which are bad news for the workers. And in this case, that would be dropping computer costs, improvements in machine learning, computer vision, and so forth, which will bring robotics little by little into these jobs, which are basically manual jobs, right? Another aspect, we have task dispersion. If you're in a monotask job or in a highly tailorized job, you're obviously more at risk. If you're exerting transdisciplinarity or in a job where you got to really be able to connect the dots between a lot of things that you cannot quantify under a common denominator, then, it's going to be more difficult for narrow AI to be able to, call the shots. When you have something like COVID happening, you can ask ChatGPT like, okay, what are we supposed to do now? It wouldn't know. There's no database. There's no past for it to refer to, It can't go back to the Spanish influenza or something, Structure, this is one we're going to talk a lot about after. So obviously, if you're in a recurrent job, I mentioned it before, you're more at risk. It's something that can be put into a script, it could be put into code and given to an algorithm. And this is especially true for office jobs because there's no robotics involved. If you're in something highly creative or involving the Polanyi paradox, which means it's hard to describe what you're doing, or you have a high VUCA, a lot of, volatility, uncertainty, etc., it's going to be more difficult to automate that job because every day is a new day, brings new challenges forth, and you can't just, have one algorithm that can face that. The fourth I talk about is human touch. So even if you're in a job that is very highly automatable, if you're in a customer-facing job, it's possible that you still able to keep that job. Like if you're a restaurant, in a high-end restaurant, I would say, they're still going to want to have waiters. If you're at McDonald's, no, they'll automate it. But if you're in the high-end space, they're still going to want human people there. And that goes for a lot of different sectors. On the other hand, if you're like in a low-end place, or if you're doing a very bad customer service, what I call the human punch, they're going to want that to be automated. So, yeah. The last I talk about is IT skills. This is more something not about automation. It's more because at the end of the day, like, we're not going to have full automation. There's probably where you have 5 people working today. In the future, there'll be 2 or 3 people. So which 2 or 3 people are they going to keep? The ones that are best at using the IT tools. So you want to be able to use and be really good at those tools. So I want to touch back on the recurrence because this is really an important part. We're going to talk about how you automate your own tasks and looking at your own job. This goes back to when I was talking about looking at your own job description. So we know that it's just a fact, like the more recurrent the job is, the more prone it is to replacements. And I say replacement and not just automation. It could be a mix of automation and outsourcing to an intern or to somewhere else, So we got to be really careful about that. Yeah. So this is just, basic. The more recurrent the task is, the easier it is to automate it, to do it for a cheaper price. It doesn't require high cognitive skills. Now I want to break this down to the tasks that you do in your job. Like we said just before, you take the JD, you look at each task that there is there, You take them, you note them down, and you show, okay, how much time do you spend on this? What percentage of your job does it represent? How recurrent is this task? And how prone it is to replaceability? And this is, again, it's something quite, there's a correlation between the two. You can see it here. So we show the tasks here in the form of bubbles. This is for a job, like a financial job. So we show the tasks in form of bubbles. Each size of the bubble is how much time it takes the person. And so you can see like they do all this stuff here, which is very recurrent kind of work. Like maybe it's on a weekly basis or a daily basis, monthly basis, but it's recurrent work, always follows a script. And then here's the more like cognitive stuff. But there's not a lot of that. So this person spends like maybe 70% of their time in stuff that could in the danger zone, you know? So you're a bit in a risky area there. This person, you can just see like this, okay, they're at risk. Once they've done their little introspection, just on the recurrence and replacement side, they're really at risk here. So if they do nothing within 5 years' time, maybe less, they're no longer going to have a job. Either them or the guy next to them who's doing the same job. One of them is going to go. So what are you supposed to do here? Well, it's like, you know, it's like in a chess game, right? You see where you are, you see what's going to happen and everything. What do? You just stay back and you do nothing? No, you don't do that. And I don't really want, I mean, a lot of people out there, they say like, you have one side, people are saying, oh, there's going to be plenty of jobs for everyone. And that's like the guy from OpenAI, Sam Altman. That's what he says. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of jobs for everyone. Don't worry. And other people, they're going to be saying like, oh, it's the end of the world or no jobs for everyone. You know, that's more like the Elon Musk kind of take. And for me, both of these, they say the same thing. They're basically saying to the workers, there's nothing you can do. Forget about it. You know, either lay back, either everything will be good or everything will be terrible, but there's nothing you can do about it as a worker. And I don't believe that. I think that there are things that people can do. So here in this case, if you look at this, where is what you can do? You can take a preemptive strike. Like in a chess game, you don't just, you see what's going to happen. You don't just stay there, do anything. You do something about it. So if you cut this up and you see this is the dangerous stuff, we got to get rid of this stuff. So you automate it or you delegate it, you know? Delegated would be easy, obviously, but you're not going to always be able to do that. Once you do that, then you're going to, oh, what am I going to do? I got rid of half my time, you know? Well, yeah, well, then you want to get more stuff up here. So you go for tasks that can be up here, you know, try and do those tasks, you know? And maybe you won't be able to get these tasks yet. Maybe they'll give you tasks that are more on this side first, automate those two, and then, you know, keep on until you get up here. Once you're able to automate this stuff and they say, oh, how did you do that? Well, then you're going to be like, yeah, I did it. I could do it for the whole department. And then suddenly you start, you know, doing this project for the whole department, you start managing people all of a sudden, you know? So yeah, there's a way to get up there. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight. And based on how you are in the company, so, you know, should you automate or delegate? Based on your seniority in the company, it's going to play a role. It's going to depend, right? So when you start your career, usually your delegation skills are really low. Delegation, think management, right? So you can't just start your first job as an intern or something and be like, yeah, I'm good at managing people, you know, or I'm good at marketing or finance or whatever. Like they're going to laugh at you, right? No one will take you seriously. There's only one thing as a junior that you can say that you're good at and you can get away with it. Being good at tools, automation tools. If you tell them like, yeah, I know how to code Python or something, they'll believe you. Like, wow, these 15-year-old kids now, they really know how to code, you know, they're good at it, you know? People believe that, you know? You can't get away with it if you're bluffing. They'll find out sooner or later. But what I mean is if you have these skills, people believe you because people believe that, you know, young people can be good at this stuff. And it's really the only weapon as a youngster that you have. So it's really important that you know, master these things because it's all you got when you start, you know, it's the only weapon that you have. Again, now over time, these two, you know, there's a bit of they take a different path. You know, when you're at your end of your career, when you get a bit, you know, your hair gets gray, you're not really expected anymore to be able to do Python or what, you know, I mean, I doubt that someone like, you know, Warren Buffett or Eric Tarshun is really great at coding. They have people to do that for them, you know, they're already high up there. They don't need that, you know. So yeah, you got to see where you are in this, you know. So me myself, I do some coding, but would I still go really deep into there? No, I wouldn't anymore because I'm kind of up here now. I passed that stage. But I do like it though with ChatGPT and everything. I can get back to doing some interesting stuff. So it's really, I don't need to know how to code everything. I could just interact with it. And my basic knowledge of coding, of loops and, you know, instructions and Boolean arguments, you know, if this, then that, or else that, and these kind of things, it's really helpful. It's really cool. I can do some really great stuff. I just recently, one of my staff came to me and they're like, oh, they were all panicked because there's this rule that they didn't know about that we have to keep all the customer purchase orders for the past 3 years. So I like, okay, well, let's not panic. Let's see how many we got. You know, they checked in the ERP. There's like Okay, we got to go through like 10,000 emails now. Find the 10,000. Maybe one takes 1 minute. 10,000 minutes. Okay, how are you going to do that? And they're starting thinking like, okay, commando and everything, it's going to take us so many months and all that. I'm like, okay, come on, girls, just stop it. Look at, I just took a little evening with ChatGPT asking, okay, how do I get all the emails with the title of the email containing the PO number? Give me the whole thing, put it in this folder. Then I said, okay, secondly, if it's not in the title of the email, but in the title of the PDF and attachment of the email, how do you do it? And give me the code, everything. I have to make some changes and everything. I have to be able to read the thing. 1 or 2 lines I don't know. I ask them, what does it mean? It tells me. It's really a cool tool. So you're not going to be able to do it without any knowledge. You need a minimum of knowledge, but then it really helps. There's a chart, there's a graph in the book that shows that, but I didn't put it in here. I forgot. But anyways, the democratization tool thing, the trend brings things in your reach, then you can really grasp it before the other guy does, and then you're the one who's like in pole position. The title of the book, by the way, I don't know if we said it, it's AI Battle Royale. The Battle Royale idea is that not everyone's going to make it through, so just to be clear about that. I don't, I mean, it's great to think that everybody will make it through, but I don't know if everyone will. I'm just trying to help the people who are willing to, those who want to go through the door that I point at. So yeah, of course, when you talk about automation, then it's like, okay, that begs the question of, can you automate? So that begs the question of, what is your proximity to the automation tools? So here we have a few jobs. You can see whether they're highly automatable or difficult to automate. If they're difficult to automate, these people are kind of safe. If they are automatable, then you want to look like, what is your proximity to the automation tools? These people here are far from the automation tools. Ooh, that's the danger zone. If you're a truck driver, you want to automate your job, you're going to have to found the next Tesla company, So, or Uber or something, right? That's not really easy to do. If you're over here, though, you got a better chance at being able to automate your job. And if you pay close attention to all these jobs, what do you notice that they have in common compared to the ones on the left? Oh. Huh? Yes. Yes, ma'am. These are office people. These are all office jobs, which means that when they arrive on the very first day, they get a desk with a lamp and a computer. And the computer is the tool which deals with data. Data is the big thing now everyone's talking about. AI uses data, big data, and by being able to manipulate data efficiently, you get ahead of the curve. So this could be with coding or something, but it doesn't have to be. It starts really with Excel. Now you got to see what it is you do with your job now. Don't overshoot. Start with what it is you're working with now, what your company has. Is it Power BI? Is it Tableau? Is it, Orange? And work from there, work your way up from there. Take some tutorials, learn about it, and then you can get ahead of the others. And then as you grow and you get new tasks more in the cognitive side that we saw there, I think, yeah, this is our guy. After he applied some of these things, I coached him and everything, and then he did his thing again, and then he ended up like this. So here he's a lot more safe from automation. This is 1 year later. So he ends up like this. So it was a great job that we did. And now he's more up here. He found a lot of new things to do, including coaching others, helping out, doing ad hoc stuff, supervising and everything. So he really made it through. So I was really proud of him. I made it up, by the way. I mean, there was no, it doesn't matter, right? It's the same. But I mean, yeah, once you're up here, you're starting to go up the corporate ladder at the same time. Getting away from the threat of automation as a worker is actually, it goes in parallel. I didn't mean to do this on purpose, but when you research it, it kind of makes sense, right? But it goes in tandem with climbing the organizational ladder. Because as you get more cognitive tasks and you do more and you get remarked for this, and then you just start, you start delegating more, you start managing more, and you get higher in the rungs. So yeah, that's part of the way to go. So I wasn't able to touch on everything tonight. I could talk a lot more about, the social skills, the importance of guanxi and things like this. I talk a lot about that in the book. There's a lot of other things, being able to brand yourself, storytelling, how you do present, there's a lot of aspects that come into play that make you different from a machine, but also that make you like get an edge over your peers. Because at the end of the day, we're not fighting against machine AI. We're fighting against other people that are around us. At some stage, maybe at some point, we'll reach like a high level of unemployment and everything. We're not there yet. There's maybe 10 years to go, maybe 20 years, maybe 50 years to go. You can see some projections in the book. And based on the new technology coming out, you can update those projections and say, okay, I thought it would be in 50 years. Now it's more like in 20 years or something, you know? But yeah, you got to like just do the best that you can. I take the of the Titanic, all right, and then it's gonna sink, right? You know, by then maybe there's universal basic income or whatever they come up with. Meanwhile, what you got to do is hang on to a job for as long as possible. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. That's my book. When my book is out in Chinese, you mean? China is like very specific in terms of the demographics. You're gonna have a huge challenge because of the aging population and everything. So there's gonna be, I think there's gonna be more, you know, there's a race in China to be able to automate things before people retire so that there's enough that can be done despite because they don't want to use immigration like they do in the US or elsewhere. So that is a big challenge. Chinese, yeah, they're pretty good at learning, though I know some people that are not that good at learning, unfortunately. I mean, again, there's ABCs, and they're good at, they understand the concept of Guanxi also. They're very good at this and how Guanxi can help to, you know, build little by little your own like network and everything, and maybe one day have entrepreneurial wings and open your own business. So they're really good at this. Yeah. I think they're quite understanding of this. But again, I've faced situations, I won't name anyone, but I faced cases where, you know, we try and provide the best to help people, for instance, to learn English, and you know they kind of expect it on a silver platter, but then when we get the stuff for them, they don't really, you know, they don't really do it. You know, they say, oh, I actually have to work to do, you know. Yeah, on top of my normal daytime job. So yes, it is difficult, but again, and it's really difficult when you try and learn how to code and it doesn't work and everything. It takes, well, it would take me 20 minutes to do this the old way. Now it's taking me 1 hour to code this. Why, you know, but then, yeah, but you're learning the thing and it'll get, you know, there'll be a ROI on that. You know? I think it's really a stick and carrot thing. So when you talk about young people, students are really good at using ChatGPT. You know, surprise, right? But when I look then for coding or things like this, I was surprised. I'm giving lessons now to a school, and I was surprised. I asked the students; most of them did not know how to code. So yeah, some of those idées reçues, right? The ideas, these preconceived things that we have, they're not always true. So it depends. But yeah, some yeah, there's different levels. Then when it comes to the employees, again, that's why you really have this conversation with them because some of them they want to stick in the past and like, oh, you know, just my daytime job, I'm paid by the month, and you know, do the ostrich, right? But you got to tell them no, like you know, or else I mean, I could do your job, you know, I could outsource it now, you know, I could use a temp or a freelance or what, and they could do the thing, you know. So there's a lot of other factors, obviously, when you're using confidential information or what, you don't want to go through, you know, you want to keep this in house. But I'm just saying, there's you got to be able to make them realize the carrot and the stick here. And you got to create the carrot and the stick if it's not apparent, you know, try to find ways to incentivize them. They identified areas of automation that they can automate themselves. If they know how to do it themselves, you can do it. But what So they don't know how to automate it themselves. Automate, but they don't know how to automate. First, they need to see how much time of their job is this going to take off. Because if it's 80%, they're kind of like sawing the branch that they're sitting on, you know. But if it's something that is within a reasonable time and they can do more interesting stuff after, they can try and learn. But I mean, there's always places that you can start to try and learn how to automate. In automation, it's not 100% full automation. Maybe you can just reduce it doing it in half the time. When you use Excel, for instance, you're seldom automating 100%. It can be like just making it shorter, be able to do it in half the time, maybe first in 80% of the time, then half the time, then 30% of the time. There's, it's by steps. And full automation maybe is never the objective. You might always have to do a little bit of work, but you just reduce it and then you can free up some time overall. But if you see, I mean, there's a discussion that you can have, this obviously depends about your boss and everything, but there's a discussion that you can have with IT people, with the manager and everything. It all depends on how you're perceived in the company too. If you're, there was a recent review, something about this in Harvard Business Review. The employees who are like considered like a C players, when they go to their boss and they're like, I got these ideas and everything, they're like, no time. If you're an A player though, and the boss, they recognize you as a good worker. When you come with ideas and everything, they're more open to listen. So this makes a big difference. See, first of all, are you a good worker? Yourself. I suppose if you're doing this kind of job to look at what you can automate, you're a good worker. Normally, you should be able to talk about this with either your boss, either IT or what, and they can provide recommendations. They can work together. They'll be happy to see that you have this idea, and they can look forward. You got to be sure that they themselves are tech savvy or understanding of what's going on. That's why I said also in one of the slides, I passed a bit fast, but it has to come from the top. This drive towards using AI and leveraging AI tools and things like this. Yeah. Of course, they do. Right. This is Amazon link, but it probably doesn't work well. I'll provide my WeChat after, so people can buy, like you can scan me and then, so, all right. The story is, folks, I was supposed to receive 50 books and they were a bit late to send it to me. So I received it a bit late, unfortunately, and I don't have them today. So I'm sorry about that. On the paper, I received an email saying that I will receive them on the 25th. So that's next Monday. So I know you're a bit disappointed, but trust me, that's nothing compared to the disappointment of my two daughters when they see three big boxes arriving on Christmas morning, and I have to tell them, sorry, girls, it's not for you. But yeah, you can add me if this works. Oh, I need to turn it back on. You can add my WeChat, and I can ship them to you. I mean, so yeah, the book it's for normally it's really expensive. I saw it's on Taobao, but I don't know why it's like 300 RMB. If you scan this and I do a deal for 120 RMB, which is practically the cost that I get them from. Um, so yeah, and then you get my signature on top, so that's lovely. Yeah, it's a nice Christmas gift. I might get them early. I don't know. Like, it's not really clear. Like, I just saw that the Haiguan paper request there. So maybe I get them this week and I can send them over to you and you might have them in time for Christmas in case. But yeah, don't hesitate. You can scan my WeChat. Let me know who I dedicate it for, who I sign it for. And then I, quite it out to you. My WeChat Pay doesn't work, but anyways, we'll figure a way. I have Alipay, that's fine. Yes, ma'am. Behind you, Lydia, there's someone. Okay. It's for the Chat GPT thing. Sorry, I meant no harm. When is this that you do the intervention, Mother? When do you do the intervention? You do the training here, right? On ChatGPT soon. Okay, I just saw the email today. Okay, the next one. Okay, right. Just a small detail. It's not a person, huh? Just it's not a person. It's just statistics, right? It's not a person. It's an analytic. Okay, okay. So, uh, oh, they're lost. The contents of the book. It's really focusing on helping taking the stance of the employee to see what they can do in this situation, with this new technology and everything coming out. What can they do, like, to preserve their value at the workplace? It's all about the employee. Always is about value. What value do you bring to the table? It's changing now, giving all these things that are happening, not just technology, but demographics, the job which is being attacked by the temps, and all these different kinds of work. So it's about how the employee can retain their value. What can you do as an employee to remain valuable? And yep, yep. Yep, yep. Get them the book. Oh, it's possible. It's possible. It's possible. You mean when you do the hiring process, how is AI going to do this process, or how, as a person, can you hire someone and know if they're good in AI? That's a very interesting question, because actually you would think that the job is already carved out. So we have a job description. We know what the person wants to do, what the person is supposed to do. If we already think when we hire the person that part of the job can be automated, then you're basically hiring the person saying, great, this is your job, but you have to automate part of it so that it's kind of weird. Or you already have the job automated and then you just need the person to do it. Sorry. I thought you wanted to say something, but you see where I'm getting at. So it's quite an interesting angle, because either the job, you believe it's when you hire someone, you believe it's a full-time job, right? Or else you're not going to hire the person. If that Yeah. Mm. But I mean, there's ways to assess. I mean, I was just being rhetorical, thinking that, but when you assess an employee, there's ways to see, okay, how good are you with the tools? You can do some tests and things. I think it's the same as for any skill, really. If it's, and again, you have to look based on the position, what kind of tools are relevant. Are you talking about Photoshop? Or are you talking about SolidWorks? Or, you do based on what the job that you're looking for is, which tools are relevant to that job. And then you can just test the skills. Yep. Any other questions? No. Okay, everyone's hungry and thirsty, I guess.
So thank you very much. And
Super.